Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Oneness Junkie podcast, hosted by me, Lydia Smith, a self-proclaimed Oneness Junkie. Oneness Junkie is a place to be inspired, encouraged, and supported. Learn from the individuals who are working to make the world a better place. Let's meet today's guest. Hello, everyone. This is Lydia. Today, I've got something special and different. I have Gib Broadhead with me. Hi, Gib.
Hi, Lydia.
And I asked him if he would come on every once in a while and record open conversations about topics that matter. And we talked about it, and we like the term conscious conversations. So we're going to call this segment a conscious conversation. And we're just going to free flow some thoughts and ideas about different topics in this conscious conversation. And if you have any topics that you'd like us to openly talk about, you can submit your ideas to onenessjunkie.com and send it in the contact us form, and we'll take a look at it. In the future, I talked to Gib about him doing some live sessions with people. So we're going to figure that out, and then we're going to promote it and let people write in to tell us what they would like Gib to do live on a Zoom call. So today I talked with Gib about talking about breakups and relationships that end. How do you feel about that, Gib?
I feel pretty good.
You ready for that conversation?
Sure.
So part of the Oneness Junkie intention is to create healing and to create more compassion in the world. And I think that the subject of relationships ending is a very challenging one for probably most people. And I wanted Gib and I to have a conversation about different ways to look at relationships ending, maybe bring some new thoughts and ideas to how people can get through those challenging times and come from a more empowering place and a more empowering perspective, and basically figuring out what feels good when it comes to relationships ending. So Gib, do you have anything in particular that you want to share about that side of what this conversation is today?
Well, I mean, separations are difficult, whether it be through work or a friendship, a lover, losing a parent,
family member, sister,
family
brother.
Member. Mm-hmm. Those, all of those things can be very difficult because what they really do, and what they're unfortunately really good at, is taking you out of the present moment. They force you, don't force you, but you push you to look at your past, or
what didn't work, like what
might have worked.
Yeah, what wasn't working in the relationship that had it end.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all question that.
We do. And those thoughts are healthy to a point. So you want to be reflective. You don't want to turn away from your emotions. You actually want to, look at them and push through them. Really the goal during a separation is to do the one hardest thing, and the one thing that's, makes it difficult, and that's stay connected.
Absolutely. So when relationships end, and really there's so many different types of relationships, I'm just going to speak to the ones that, pop out for me is, let's just say like a friendship. All of us have had, I'm sure at one point or another, a friendship that may not have felt good any longer. And it was just maybe not healthy, or maybe it became toxic. I mean, there's just a number of things that can be challenging in even a friendship. And I wanted to bring in the idea of how do you tell yourself that you're being compassionate inside of removing yourself from a destructive relationship. Because some people might say, well, that's not very compassionate of you. Why don't you just put up with it, and accept people where they're at? And I think that a lot of times when we're thinking about compassion, we're thinking about compassion towards others, but there's also the concept of compassion towards yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And so sometimes those relationships need to go away in order for you to be good to you, to help you. And so I read something today on Facebook. I thought it was so interesting. I took a screenshot of it. I want to read it right now. Okay, it says, you can forgive some people without welcoming them back into your life. Apology accepted, access denied. I love that. It's so cool. Apology accepted, but access to my life denied, because you can just choose that you're no longer willing to put up with whatever you've been putting up with in that relationship to make it work. Like you can become aware.
That's an interesting topic, and it brings something up for me in my life. I had a friend, there was the three of us, with me and two friends of ours, and we would go climbing all the time, and we'd hang out all the time and hang out socially. We were just, a team. And after a while, I started to realize that I was giving up too much to the friendship, that I was, catering towards someone else's needs, and that there wasn't an equal exchange.
Yeah, the reciprocity.
Right. And so, it went on for quite some time. And my girlfriend at the time, I drove her crazy because she saw it. She didn't feel like I was living in my integrity about it. And so, there was more to it than that, but she was right. Now that I think about it. And so finally one day, I think it was, we're supposed to meet somewhere, and they were like, I'm not going to come. And they just were like, whatever, like, we're just not, sorry, we got other stuff. But
right.
If I was even late to show up for anything that they had planned, they would, get really upset. And so finally I was like, this isn't a healthy way to stop things, but this is what I did. And
it's a learning opportunity.
I basically just said, fuck off. And I don't do that very much. I'm not
to them. You said it to them.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm not a bridge burner.
Good. You were self-expressed.
I was self-expressed.
That was an evolution in some regards.
Right. And the reason why I did that is because I knew that I could never fully trust. And I knew, or I felt like anytime I checked in about it, that any incarnation of them would never, it would never be okay for me to reach out. And then, she's reached out to me multiple times trying to apologize and say she's sorry and all that. And I'm just, and she's mad because she thinks I can't forgive her. And it's interesting because I'm not the one that needs to forgive myself. Like, I don't have anything to forgive myself for, but she has something that she needs to forgive herself for. And it's not my responsibility. Like, you need to entertain friendships that have energetic balance. All of your relationships, in your work, in your love life, with everything, you need a balanced exchange. Sometimes you need to give more, right? But that energy in a natural way will end up coming back to you. So that's really the goal with your friendships. And most likely the reason why you separate is because one or the other have outgrown
right.
or regressed.
Right.
So
right. And I like to consider it, and this is how I learned from Abraham, but an alignment. If you're in alignment, if you're on a vibrational alignment with someone, then you vibe, and everything's working. And sometimes you can be in a low vibrational alignment, and that's why you worked out in the first place as a friendship. And then maybe one person's vibe changed, or maybe you started loving yourself more or finding better ways to care for yourself and have compassion for yourself. And then it all of a sudden, the resistance of the contrast that relationship was providing you. And again, these are lovers, bosses, employers, sisters, brothers. It's everybody. This applies to everybody. And so where I wanted to go with it is that, it's really hard to end. Okay, I'm going to say end, but I don't mean that just because you have separation that it's over. You always have free will and choice to come back together if it's meant to be. If you were meant to be with someone, it will happen because that person will want it and you will want it. And it will just naturally gel back together, and you'll come together on a different plane, probably.
And that is exactly right. Yes, that's exactly right. Like, you have to be in that mode. That is the mode that you have to go in when these things are happening. You have to trust, and it's a test of faith. It's a test of faith. And if if you're spiritually aware, if you know how to check in and ask questions and get answers, you can get answers about this and guidance. And as long as you stay in the guidance and trust, the thing is, you have to trust. You have to trust your answers. As long as your emotions aren't getting in the way and giving you false answers, which can happen. So it's always good to seek, outside help when you're not able to read yourself. The hardest person to read is yourself. But there's some gold in there for you. There's some gold in there. Yeah.
And also the idea that if things are disrupted and they do create separation, when you just believe that the universe or God, if you're a believer in God and you have a personal relationship with God and Jesus, if you believe that they have your back and that everything has a reason and a purpose and the universe has your back, then it's so much easier to manage not knowing, like it's so much easier for me to not know when I just believe that everything happens for a reason. And I feel like I'm just kind of going with the flow and trying to be open to the guidance that comes my way and looking for the signals and the signs and the doors that open and the people that are knocking at your door and saying, let's do this, and go, oh my gosh, maybe that's next. Maybe that's what I'm supposed to do next, And I think people feel devastated, and, I'll add myself in that. I think we all feel devastated when something ends because we don't know what the future holds. And that's where this present moment that you are always speaking about is so powerful, right?
Mm-hmm. And change is hard. And to grow, you have to live on your edge. You have to stay on your edge a bit. And it's uncomfortable there, and you have to get used to it. But there's, like I was saying earlier, there's gold there. There's gold there for you if someone can stick with it. And it's interesting because the shifts can happen quickly. Like, really, a separation is about perspective. And if you can adjust your perspective and trust and know that what you're doing is in the greatest good, both for yourself, the other person or situation, or, whatever it is, the job, the sister, the brother, then there's, something pretty amazing can happen, and, I've been going through things lately through a separation. And this last week, I've come to some realizations, and it's shifted my entire perspective on things. The Spirit was already giving me these answers. I just wasn't trusting them. And the other thing I wasn't doing was, staying in the present and being okay with where things are and focusing on my purpose. And whenever I shift my perspective back to my purpose, everything just kind of falls away. Everything just kind of falls away.
Like all the fears, all the
fears
worries.
Fall away. You start to see the signs, and you see the support that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And it's interesting, like I haven't been going out very much or being very social at all for, a while. And yesterday my friend called me out of the blue and he's like, "Hey, you want to go to the Rolling Stones concert?"
Wow. Did you go?
Tonight we're going to the Rolling Stones.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know they were in your town. That's
yeah,
awesome.
they're in Austin tonight. So, and I'm really when he called me and did it, I was like, holy shit,
That's
like
exciting.
look what I just manifested.
Yeah, legends.
And it just came out of nowhere. And I knew that, that I'm supposed to go to this show. So here I go.
And that's perfect for this topic of conversation, because you know what? You can't always get what you want.
Exactly.
So when they sing that song tonight, you're going to go, okay, that's what Lydia was talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And maybe we don't need everything we think we want, right? Maybe it's not for our best good.
Well, you can still, manifest things that you want, right? So it's okay to be manifesting during these situations. You just don't want to do it in an ungrounded way or in an unguided way. You need to be supported with your manifestations. So you can ask Spirit, "Hey, if I want to manifest this, will you support me? Is this in my greatest good?" And if they say yes, you should go for it.
Yeah.
If they say yes, you should go for it.
So another thing that I was thinking about to bring up related to the subject is, so let's just say, you get to the place. Well, one thing I wanted to bring up is a lot of times we don't want to live in the truth that it's possible the relationship wasn't all that our brains wanted to make it out to be. So we feel like we really lost a lot when we start digging deeper into the relationship and being reminded, oh, I didn't like that about the relationship. I didn't like that about the relationship. And you start looking at all these things you put up with. There's a part of us, I think, that fantasizes about once the relationship's gone, like, oh, how great it was, instead of being in the reality of all the things that weren't right to begin with. And a lot of times, like if I can just say, like a work relationship, people a lot of times stay in a job and they're just not really fulfilled. I mean, I think that's pretty common. And they're like, well, it's a good job. It's security and I have insurance and, I get along with the guy and, it's fun sometimes. And I like the people I work with. And they just kind of like, fantasize that it's fulfilling when it's maybe really not. And working relationship or any kind of relationship, isn't working for you on the inside, but you stay in it, then by the time that it does end, I think it's so important to just be real with yourself and remind yourself, like, this is what I manifested, because I really wasn't that happy in it. I just wasn't courageous enough to leave it to the unknown and to take the chances and to take the risk and live on the edge, like you were talking about. And I think it's so important to remind ourselves that most of what happens in our life, we're manifesting. So we have to take responsibility for something ending, right. Even though we think we're the victim of the circumstance, we really manifested that. And right. And I think that's so important. And then the other piece, and I'm just going to throw these things out and you can address what feels right to address. But the other thing I was thinking is, once you are in the breakup and you're no longer with the situation, the person or the employer or the, family member, whatever, you can, when you get peace about it and you're like, hey, I take responsibility, I manifest this, this is good, I'm okay with this situation. And then turn that into, instead of being mad or angry at the breakup, maybe the person broke up with you and you weren't ready for it. Okay. I think when you can get to a place where you actually send them good energy, good vibes, I'm I want them to be successful because I want to be successful. You cannot be hating on someone, providing them with anger and frustration and mentally energy. I'm not talking about where you're talking to someone and telling them verbally. I'm just saying, like, you can't be sending negative vibes. Like, I hope they fail. And I hope, I hope they never find anybody to love again, but then want good for you, but I want to manifest the perfect man of my dreams, like that is so incongruent. You've got to get to the place where you align that they have their good and that you send them their positive vibes in order for you to be in alignment with attracting your perfect job or your perfect mate or your perfect relationship with your family member, So let's talk about that, because I think that's important, where you get to after the breakup.
Right. One of the things, one of the reasons why it's such a turnoff if your partner is still fighting with their ex is because it shows you that they're not evolved. It's not a jealousy thing. It's not an attention thing. It's when it's at its root cause, it's an evolution thing. And so until your partner can get through something like that, it could cause a lot of problems. Yeah.
Speak a little bit more about getting right with your own vibe in order to attract what's next. And when you want something good to happen to you, talk about that a little bit.
Sure. I think the best way is, there's a lot of different ways. And I think there needs to be an equal focus for your body and your mind and your spirit. And you have to be working on all three. You have to, you need to get out and move your body. You need to, listen to those books that, and that wisdom that can come from people like, Esther Hicks or Abraham or Deepak or, whoever, Dr. Phil,
So, whoever your jam is, right?
Right. And
Gabby
then
Bernstein.
Gabby Bernstein. And the other thing you need is a spiritual connection. You need those three things. And if you have those three things, you can negotiate your way through anything. And the trick is when there is separation, you'll tend to move away from one, two, or all three of those things. And so, but those are exactly the things that you need to be leaning into, because that's what's going to help you shift the energy. Usually it's a perspective thing. Breakups can cause all kinds of issues from your past. For me, it was almost like, because I've had, a lot of girlfriends that have cheated on me, and that was kind of a thing. And, even as a young age, I would dive into them even more, because I think there was a part of me that felt like I deserved that. And that goes back to my past and, what happened with my father dying in the womb, I think.
Wait, explain what you just said. Your father died before you were born. You were in the womb.
I was
in the womb, and your father died at war in Vietnam, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you never got to meet him. Okay. But you said what happened to me was my father died in the womb. And it was like, I don't know if they're going to understand that. I knew what you were talking about.
That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Okay.
Well, if you feel so inclined, do you want to share what you were sharing with me the other day about the training that you did, and then the trip that you took, and like the insights that you were getting about the three components? You just said, body, mind, and spirit, but didn't that happen for you on your big trip in, was it August or September? I think August. It was September. Oh,
in August. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The hottest month of the year.
Tell
everybody what you did. And we have about, 10 minutes more in our conversation. So share with the listeners what you did and what you learned.
Sure. Over the summer, we planned a trip to do a rim to rim hike from the Grand Canyon, where you hike from the South Rim all the way over down through the canyon, all the way to the North Rim. And you do it over 4 days, and it's extremely challenging.
Oh my gosh. So hot.
It's, 30 miles of hiking, 7,000 or 8,000 feet of elevation up and down.
Did you have to carry your own water the whole time?
You carry water with you, but you can fill up at certain spots.
Oh, with special filtration.
You can use filters, and they have water at there's different campsites you can stop at.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I decided, I needed to train for this. So I basically started training, and I'd never trained for anything in my life ever. So, I was
which I find interesting. Well, which I found interesting because you're so athletic. So it's
yeah, it's funny. And I was like, it would kind of surprise me too. I was like, I'd never done anything like that before. It was
and that's pretty big endurance challenge for sure.
Right. Paddleboarding, hiking, just pushing myself past what I thought my limits might be. My goal was to do that so I could have an enjoyable time, so I could just enjoy the moment. The last time I did this trip was 6 or 7 years ago, and I had 2 weeks to get ready. And I did it, but I was a mess afterwards. I was a mess. So, what it allowed me to do, because the Grand Canyon is a very spiritual place, it allowed me to come in there and really connect. I felt the body work helped kind of connect some dots for me. It started to open up, especially after I got back, to how I really was feeling about things and things I had been kind of pushing away. And there's old issues that needed to be addressed. And so I was able, by doing that work with my body, to open up the space to allow these amazing healings that I've been going through in the past month and a half since I got back.
You would say, I think you told me that, major switches are being flipped, like big ones, right? That help you transform from an old way or old paradigm to this new paradigm where you're understanding that living in your purpose is where it's at for you. Right. So, is there anything that comes to mind around relationships or ending relationships that we haven't touched on? I'm trying to think if there's some thoughts that are floating through my head that we didn't really touch on. I wanted to address, it's not comfortable to go through an ending relationship. It's a perspective. It's a way of thinking about it. It's not, like I like to say, it's not what happens to you. It's how you respond to it, right? That matters. And so,
very much so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you put what you want out there, you say how you feel, and the universe responds, and you have to respond with it. And so if you put yourself out there, it's okay to do that, because that's how you learn and grow. And whether or not those things will happen for you probably doesn't matter. What matters is that you put yourself out there in the first place. When you're uncomfortable in a relationship or in a post relationship, the first thing you want to do is get yourself connected to source. Really, that's the main thing. And then once you do that, you can get your guidance. And once you have your guidance, you can act on it. So, really the goal, I think, to quote, feeling better is by doing something like that.
Right. And when you do that, the end result is you have a sense of hope. You have a sense of possibility. You have a sense of peace. You have a sense of connectedness. You're filling your own cup. And that's something I think that in relationships, any kind of relationship, it's so important to remind ourselves that we are responsible for ourselves. And we have to fill our own cups and not expect our partners or our employers or our family members to fill our cups. Once we take responsibility for filling our cup, and you allow the other person to be in their responsibility to fill their own cup, then I think that's when relationships really work. So the key is finding a partner who also understands that. And as long as you're both growing and you both recognize your own responsibility to take care of your needs, you come together and you just support each other in your own personal levels of growth. And I think it's a beautiful way to be in a relationship.
It's the ideal way. It's the ideal way. You both have to be, there's many relationships where people are just, they're where they are and they're going to stay that way for the rest of their lives. And maybe that's a good thing or a bad, but they're in energetic alignment. If you're in a growth phase and you're, dedicated to your growth, especially if you want to do spiritual work full time, you have to stay connected. You have to. So, if, for work like that, you don't really have a choice. If you want to do this work, you have to stay connected. And so what that does is that, if you've got a partner that allows that and that you allow that with them, amazing things can happen.
Are you familiar with Gary Zukov? Do you know him? Okay. He wrote the book, The Seat of the Soul, which was one of the books that totally opened me up back in the 90s, late 90s. And it answers like a lot of questions. But he wrote a book. Let me think if I can remember the title. I want to call it, I think it's called Spiritual Partnerships. I think that's it. It might be the title of the book. But that's what the subject of the book is, spiritual partnerships. And he says, like in the old paradigm, man and woman got married because they needed each other to create family, and woman needed man for sustainability, especially like the nomadic tribes, like you couldn't procreate without, a man in the olden days. I mean, now you can, but it's shifted, that the relationships of why man and woman come together have shifted in this time period. And really it's about your spiritual evolution. And that's where spiritual partnerships, come in, because woman doesn't need a man to survive anymore. But woman and man have to want each other, in order to make it work, So it's all I think everybody goes through relationships of many different types. And I think it's a topic that is on people's minds a lot, just because you're relating to people on a daily basis. And I thank you for being willing to have this discussion. I'm sure there's more, right, to just discuss even around relationships. So what if I put it out to you want me to put it out to the listeners, that if anybody wants to submit an inquiry about being on a live Zoom call with us where Gib could do some work with you, then submit your thing that you want to work on. If you just went through a difficult breakup and you want answers, or you want to be inspired, or you want to find a new perspective of looking at what the pain and the hurt might be feeling like right now, and you can't get out of it, and you need some guidance on, what it could be all about, where it's coming from, Gib can help with that. So email us at onenessjunkie.com, and we'll look at the submissions, and Gib will pick one that you'll basically be guided on which one to pick, right? I mean, that's kind of how you do things.
Yep. Oh no, that sounds great.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. I have no idea when we're going to do it. We'll do it when we get some submissions that we can, look at. And if also the other thing is, and I think I said this earlier, but if you have any topical conversations that you would like for Gib and I to talk about, then submit those too. If you want us to talk about family of origin issues, past lives, discussing, what really are past lives and how do they affect our future? I mean, how they affect our present moment. And
our shadow side is a good good one.
Good
Your shadow
topic
side.
that you're, yeah. And I'm going to take this opportunity. I may play this before January. So I'm going to take this opportunity to let you know that Gib is going to be putting on a 1-day workshop, probably 4 hours. I think it's the January 22nd. So you could go to gibbroadhead.com and let him know you're interested in the workshop. And when he has all the final details, he can submit the email to you, and you can decide if you want to enroll in it. So you're working on that, aren't you?
Yeah, that workshop's going to be really fun. Yeah.
I want to come. I'm going to be there. So
yeah.
I look forward to being a part of it as well. So thank you for your time today, Gib. This is so fun. Thank you for saying yes when I said if you want to get on some conversations, and we'll keep them coming. As long as y'all want to hear them, we'll keep having them. Just having live, free-flowing conversations about things that matter. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Lydia.
All right. Talk to you later.
Okay. Bye.
We've reached the end of this episode. If you'd like to continue with this inspirational journey, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. If you are a self-proclaimed oneness junkie, get yourself a t-shirt and spread the message of oneness in your community. And finally, if you have a story to share or know someone that should be a guest on this podcast, contact us at onenessjunkie.com. See you next time. And remember, when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. Compassion starts with you and me.